Hi, Summer.
Hi, Jesse.
I'm so happy you're here today, guys. I'm sitting with Summer Freen, and I'm going to read it, Summer. You are a Chief Revenue Officer at a publicly traded company.
You got
Uh,
it.
I know it's badass, but I don't know exactly what it means. So why don't we just start out by you explaining a little bit about your current role right now?
Sure. So I moved into this chief revenue officer position several months ago. And while it sounds fancy, it can really be boiled down pretty simply. I oversee sales and marketing. And so, really, it's our company trying to focus one lead individual on all of the revenue driving activities for the company, which generally speaking fall under sales and marketing. So we have e-commerce and digital advertising, folks that, are on a sales team, and that's balanced up against our CFO, who manages all the cost driving activities and makes sure that we are not overspending as we're driving that revenue for the company.
And is this for a handful of different products, or is your company focused on one product?
So we have several different products. I would simplify it to say probably 5 brands that go across a couple of different categories.
Okay. So you simplified that for us. But I have to say, so first of all, Summer, I haven't had anyone on the podcast yet that's in a role even similar to yours. So
cool.
Excited to learn about this. But secondly, I don't imagine being able to have that role is simple, right? Like I imagine there's a bunch of backstory and history that took place in order for you to even be eligible for this type of role.
Yeah.
So there's so much I want to talk to you about. So why don't we start just kind of introducing you and talking about your background, how it all started, and then your history, I guess, with education in your career that led you into this position.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Texas. As any proud Texan starts any story by saying they're from Texas. I grew up, I lived in Texas for 20 something years and never thought I would leave Texas. My parents divorced at a young age. I think I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And so I lived in a single family household, I guess. My mom worked, nonstop. I think at a young age, she expected a lot of me in particular. I was the older of myself and my sister. And, I took on a lot of responsibility at a young age while my mom worked weekends and that sort of thing. And so I think from an early age, I, was independent and responsible. And I, joked with friends as I got older. I didn't realize that other 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds weren't doing laundry at home at that age, which I didn't really think much of it then. And it was until I got older that I realized the amount of responsibility that I sort of put on my own shoulders.
You put it on your shoulders, or it was kind of just what was needed in the household?
I think a little bit of both, honestly. I think part of it was me just sort of probably subconsciously trying to help out because my mom had so much on her own plate. Her parents owned their own business. And
so that's what she did.
Yeah. So she was always, trying to just make sure ends were meeting at their business too. And I, but at a young age, I knew I wanted to reach for the stars, if you will. My dad was always one to say, the quotes I remember the most from him are knowledge is power. And, he would use this metaphor of a bowl of cherries and say, I could have all of the cherries in the bowl, but I would have to work hard for them. They weren't just going to come easily to me or be given to me. And I don't know where the cherry metaphor came from, but it stuck in my head. But when I was a kid, when we were, people were playing house and school, I was playing lawyer.
You were. So from the very beginning, what was the age gap what is the age gap between you and your sister?
22 months.
Oh, so you're close in age, but the responsibility is still more so you were the older one.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
always. She and you know, I love her to death, and she'll probably hear this at some point, but she leaned into that little sister role.
Sure. As
So
as would I. Uh, I'm the oldest too, so I don't know that little sister role, but
yeah,
I mean, there's definitely something to be said for birth order and how it
agree, agree, agree,
Okay,
agree.
so you were playing lawyer. So it was kind of
Yeah.
innate, like you knew from the beginning, this is what I'm gonna be big. I'm gonna have.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to make it sound like that's, I've, achieved some big grandiose thing at this point, but I do think that I started at a young age leaning into leadership type roles. And I think that was fostered by my parents. But I would do you remember when you would go to the mall when we were little and they would have the credit card applications by the register
Yeah,
at checkout, like JC Penney or
yeah.
whatever? I would take those applications home and have my friends fill them out, as part of their needing my work as a lawyer. And I would set up an office and, good thing they would still play with me because that doesn't sound like the most exciting thing to do. But anyway, yeah.
So that was okay. And then, so did you just stay on that trajectory then? Did you straight through high school? It was about you were focused on your grades and then where you wanted to go to college?
Yeah, I've always been very type A, focused on my grades. Of course, I was in high school. We all have fun. So, I certainly had my fair share of that too. But I have a long history of family that went to the University of Texas in Austin. So I sort of knew I wanted to go there. And, going back to the joke about Texas, it was hard to imagine I would ever leave Texas. And so it just seemed natural to go to the University of Texas, which is where I ended up going. And I think for me, I initially did think I was going to go into law school.
And
And
that was my next question. Was that
yeah.
your track at that time?
Yeah, so I think, you had career day as in elementary school and I dressed up as a lawyer, whatever that looks like. I think I wore like my Sunday church dress to school. So I definitely had planned to go to law school. But I think when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, what was most important to me was getting a job that would allow me to be financially secure in life. And so I'm not really sure I knew what a lawyer meant, but all the lawyers I knew of
Had money.
made
That
good
was what I was
money.
going to ask you. Is there a lawyer in the family, or just as a young little girl, lawyers were successful and that was
Yeah, that's really what it boiled down to. And I think I had been given feedback probably from my parents that I was good at arguing, which probably wasn't a compliment at the time, but I could state my case. And so it sort of felt like if I could state my case and work hard in school and make good money, a lawyer seems like maybe that's the right direction to go.
Okay, so you were on a path in undergrad for law school?
So I wanted to do corporate law. So in my very simple way of thinking about that, I went to business school and thought if I got a business foundation, which is what I was doing, that then I could go to law school following graduating with my business undergrad. So I'll fast forward and say I did not go to law school, obviously, but that was initially my thinking. And then once I got into the University of Texas and was, you have to pick your major, I chose marketing, which seemed to give you a good understanding of the broader business landscape. You sort of can dip your toe into different facets of business, whether finance or accounting or general management. And I chose marketing and, was lucky during my junior year to come across an internship that was on campus with a company I initially started my career with. And I got a really awesome sales opportunity coming out of college and just sort of like went down that path and never looked back.
Okay. So let me ask you a couple of questions because business marketing, that world is a world I don't know anything about. I went into a completely different field. So
yeah,
you went into this internship and you just kind of fell in love with it. You fell in love with the company.
Yeah. So the company I initially started with, I worked there for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which is a big deal, especially in this day and age, right? To come out of
I was going to
college.
say for someone to leave school and to stay at their first job for that long is actually very rare. That's a
I
very
know.
big deal.
So that company, the average tenure of their employees is pretty high. Like I was under the average, for example. So,
Wow.
but you'll ask, 9 out of 10 employees at that company or that have left that company why they stay so long, why they have stayed for so long, what they enjoyed the most about the company. And the majority of them say it's the people that they work with. And so that was my experience when I was, doing this internship as well, as I really felt connected from a values perspective with the people I was meeting. And what I've also, discovered in talking with others and going through different career opportunities is that company also invests pretty heavily in their people, in training and development, especially if they see you as a leader, future leader of the company. And so, I constantly felt supported, motivated, and challenged, which kept me there for a long time as well.
That's awesome. That's special to love the company that much to stay with them.
Yeah.
So if that was your first internship, does that mean you went and you did other internships and then you came back, you circled back, or you just stayed?
No, I stayed. So what happened during my junior year of college was I did an on-campus internship. At the end of the internship, we presented to members of, a senior team, and they followed up asking if I would be interested in having a full-time job following my senior year. And so I went through the standard interview process still. And there was a pretty pivotal moment in my life, which I didn't really realize was happening in real time.
Yeah.
In that moment when I was going through the interview process, they asked me if I would be willing to, I was interviewing for a sales job. So they asked me if I would be willing to move out of Texas at some point. And, I had a serious boyfriend at the time and just didn't really think that was a possibility for me in life ever. So I naively said no. And I found out later that I almost didn't get the job offer because I had said no, that I wasn't willing to move out of Texas. But thankfully, this will be the first time I tear up in this conversation when I think about this individual, but he was just saw something in me that was really special. And he said, ignore her. She'll be fine. I have a spot for her in my team in Austin, which is where I was. And we'll figure it out. And the joke was on me because I was living in Iowa, I think a year and a half later. So clearly he was right. I was wrong. I was willing to move out of Texas. And I haven't been back in, almost 20 years or so. So that showed. Yeah, it was really wild. And that decision, that he influenced for me in that moment really was meaningful to my life, not just my career, but my whole life.
What's so cool to me about that part of the story is that you were seen. Like someone really saw you.
Agree.
For you. Even if you weren't, because how old were you? I mean, you must have been so young.
Yeah, I was 20 or 21 at the time.
Like
probably
21.
21.
What do we know about ourselves?
I know.
That age? But you weren't just like another, like he really saw you as a human and saw that in you. That's really cool.
It was. That's why I get easily emotional and thinking about it because, as a young 20 something old, to your point, you don't even realize the power or gravity of the words you're saying in front of a group of people. Because when I said that, I was sitting in a panel interview.
Well, that's really young even to be doing that. I mean, when I was that age, I was like just gearing up for grad school. Like I wasn't even turning into the real world yet.
And as I thought back on that moment, the sad irony to me, the people that were the hardest and most critical on me in that interview in terms of me being willing or not being willing to move were women. And, perhaps it was because
why do you
they felt like I should have to sort of like take the same lumps that they did and have to like sacrifice and move for their own careers or what have you. And I don't know.
You also
I'm
think it's
confused in there.
because women, and maybe I'm wrong, so you can say no,
Yeah.
but a lot of time, and this is something I'm working on, but you know, I'm going to be 40. Women say yes when they don't want to.
Yeah.
You were saying no because it wasn't a yes for you, and
Right.
you were just speaking your truth, and you weren't people pleasing.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Fuck that." I said yes so many times, and now
She's gonna gotta do it too. Yeah.
now this 21-year-old's gonna come in here and be like, "No."
Right.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I don't know, maybe.
No, I definitely think that played into it. And I it's interesting because I know the women that were in that room that had that view.
Uh-huh.
Um, it worked out how it was supposed to. So I was fortunate that um my future first manager was in the room that day.
Okay. Good. Life plays out and you can look back and be like, ah, I get it.
Yeah,
I understand why
exactly.
that situation was the way it
And
was.
for me also to be so mindful about that bias that I might have in my own conversations,
Oh, yeah.
as I've gone through
You're
my
at that
career.
table. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I feel like there's a decision to be made, that's a tough one like that. It's, gender is out of it, right? It's, and also life changes, the way the world's viewed is changed. At that time when we were in sales, you had to be willing to move everywhere, all over the place. And it's just not like that even necessarily anymore to
Especially,
get
I would say
things.
post-pandemic, I feel like there's so much more
Exactly.
flexibility.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you got your degree in marketing, is sales related to that, or you kind of pivoted because
Yeah,
the opportunity presented itself?
it a little bit of both.
Okay.
So I sales and marketing do go very much hand in hand. And even in my current role, prior to me sitting in this position, they were a little bit more separated. I was still very close with the person that was overseeing sales, but now that I'm overseeing sales and marketing, you can just feel the connectivity work together even more, because marketing, you're really talking about the end consumer, and sales is about getting a product on a shelf so that it can get to the end consumer. And so those two things that really have to work hand in hand. But I did not think I would be going into a sales role right out of school. It was the best thing I could have done, though, because eventually I made my way into marketing at that same company. But I was a much stronger marketer as a result of having started in sales.
Because you had that knowledge.
Yeah, it forced me to see consumers coming into stores every day and talk to the retailers and understand the products and understand the pricing in a more tangible way than you get, not that every marketer sits behind a desk all day or their computer, but by and large, you are doing that. So I had already had the experience of being
When
out.
when I think of a marketer, I think of like a TV show where they have like a big like not billboard, but like board up in front of like a table of people, and they're telling you how they're going to sell your item. I mean, this is so out of my world.
That's also advertising coming in, which marketing has a big component of advertising too. So it all goes hand in hand, which is what makes marketing so fun. Yeah.
So what did you do when you left this company? You left were you in a marketing role when you transferred out?
So when I left, I was in a role or in a group that was called Strategy and Business Development. And I had just helped to negotiate or lead the strategy and negotiation efforts for a really big transaction for another company. So the company I was working for invested a ton of money in another company.
Okay.
I left to go work at the company that we made that investment in.
Was that contentious, or was that supportive?
No, it was incredibly supported on both sides. And the industry that the other company was in was something I had a lot of passion for. And I felt like it was a really awesome growth opportunity for me. It's what took me from living where I was in Virginia out to LA.
Oh, okay. So that's what took you to LA.
Yeah, that's what took us to LA, and, right before the pandemic. So it was, really.
Okay, so wait, so during this time you get married and you have both your kids by now?
Yes. So
Okay.
when I joked that I left Texas within a year and a half of having started that other job, I moved to Iowa, and I lived in Iowa for 2 years. And that's when I met my husband
On an airplane, and
on
were
an
you on that
airplane.
airplane traveling for work?
Yes,
All
both
right.
of us were.
Okay.
And the great state of Iowa taught me a lot about myself as a young 20 something female, but it was not my forever state to live in. And so my husband and I were both traveling a bunch during that time because he had moved to Iowa too. He's not from Iowa.
Okay.
And so both of us were traveling. So it was, not lost on us that that's where we ended up meeting.
Wait, so how convenient you meet on a plane, but you're both from the same state? Because you could have met on a plane and been from completely different parts of the country.
Scott was from New York originally.
Oh, he is?
But living in
Where's his
Iowa at
accent?
the time. His sister has it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're now, so was it your job summer that brought you guys to LA?
Yeah. So I'm the one that started the conversation because part of me accepting this new job, there was a contingency that I had to move to LA within, 18 months or so. So during that time, Scott was in conversations with his company about what that meant for him. And they opened the door to him heading out to the West Coast to help lead part of their practice out of LA. So it was really serendipitous. I started the conversation and he sort of closed it for us to, both officially come out to LA.
You think you guys are here for good, or is there still, because of your professions, you guys will relocate again? Is that kind of something you will always do and the kids will just...
No, I think we're pretty rooted in California. I have always wanted to live in California. In fact, I thought when we moved from Iowa to Virginia, I thought we would be in Virginia for maybe 2 years or something. And then my goal was to get to California.
Your goal was California.
Yeah. I will tell you though, that whenever I was offered the opportunity to go work for that second company, the one that the last company I made the investment in, I didn't pursue that opportunity because I thought I was going to be able to live in California. It just sort of navigated its way there. I believe in the power of manifesting.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was right there, but the universe has a plan. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I've said this to a number of people, but California is connected to my soul in a way that I have a hard time explaining, but it's the sunshine is probably really what it boils down to, and the water. But I just always felt a calling to California. So
you knew
it was easy for us to make that call at the end of the day, particularly when we had a strong, work opportunity to take advantage of, I guess. So yeah, that's what brought us out there.
And now you guys are here.
Yes. I keep saying there because, I'm not in California today.
So yeah.
That's confusing.
Oh yeah. Well, Summer's on a vacation and she's still on this podcast. She's amazing for making the time. Okay, so you're in California. You have the position you came out here for. I know the position you're in now is even different than the position you came out to California for. So let's kind of go into where you are now and how, each job led to this. And then there's so many things I want to talk to you about.
So it was actually a wild ride. In getting to California, I was at that company that the last one had made an investment in, and I stayed there for about 2 years. Around the 2-year mark, there were just a lot of challenges, I'll say, at that company. And so it was time for me to make a different life decision. And I was presented an opportunity to come join the company I'm at now. Okay. So I came to the company I'm at now as the chief marketing officer. So that's a pretty simple title to understand, right? I was overseeing all of the company's marketing efforts.
Okay.
And over the course of the past year or so, we've had some changes at the company, and the decision was made that it would be best to consolidate, kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, all of the revenue driving activities under one person. And so sales and marketing now report into me versus reporting into separate, pillars, if you will.
Okay.
But really, I think to answer your question, I think that what led me to this particular role was really all of the past, how long have I been working in the professional world? It feels like almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
All of the sales and marketing experience I've had up until now. And I've sort of had offshoots of sales and marketing experiences too, with strategy, business development, and leading digital functions as well. So all of those sort of merged together to lead me to where I am, and sort of the sweet spot role, I think, for me.
Great. And you get to drive past the water in the sunshine to get to work.
Agree. It really is beautiful. It's hard to have a bad morning when you're driving next to the Pacific Ocean.
When you're staring at going down the PCH.
It really makes you check yourself a little bit.
That's awesome. It's really just to think back and be like, I had a calling to California. I wanted the sun. I wanted the water. And that's literally your drive to work.
I know.
Just how heavy and the universe has in our life.
Agree.
So, okay, so you're in this big corporate company. I imagine there's more men than women.
True.
You're in a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about what that's like for you, as much as you're comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
Sharing. I hate that this is an aspect of this as well, but I'm going to throw this out there. You're also an attractive woman in a leadership role, which I don't know. I'm not in the corporate world, but I wonder if that, plays a role into how you're treated, how you're respected as somebody, in a management position. Talk to me about that.
I love that thank you, first of all.
Well, everyone's gonna, if you can see, yeah, she's a cute, happy blonde, guys.
So a few things, and you stop me if I don't unpack one of them, because there's a lot in there. So in terms of the male aspect, the industry I work in and have really since I started working is male dominated. And so I don't really know any different. And I think for me, I work fine in that environment, but it's certain, and I'm not sure I realized it right out the gate in my career. I think in part because I had very strong mentors, male and female, but honestly, even more so male, that, they were sort of ahead of their curve, if you will, in being supportive of women and recognizing that we have different challenges than men in many cases.
Yes.
And it hasn't always been the case, but I'll give you 2 examples. One example where I was, incredibly supported was I had just had my son, and I just had come back from maternity leave, and he got RSV really bad. And this was on a Sunday night or something. And that Friday, my boss, a male, and my boss's boss, also a male, this is going to sound bougie, but we were taking a private plane to a meeting in Chicago, and they had organized the time we were leaving around my drop-off schedule for my son at daycare on Monday morning, which was really kind and thoughtful, right? They didn't have to adjust the plane departure schedule around me. They could have said, figure it out, someone else can drop him off, get to the plane early, what have you. So they had already sort of made an effort to prioritize my schedule. Well, Sunday night, I'm in the emergency room with my son with RSV because it's really bad, and they had to transport him by an ambulance and the whole 9 yards. So I'm feeling horribly guilty that I'm going to definitely miss this meeting that they've arranged conveniently around me to go. And I, text my boss, and he couldn't have been more supportive than to say, Your family is first. Another meeting will come. This is not make or break. It is fine. Like, be with your son. And in that moment, for me, it was what I needed, right? I was a new mom. This is my first child. It was incredibly overwhelming. I was struggling with a bit of, baby blues. And so to have that supportive just took a ton of a weight off my shoulders. That same boss later, when I was having a particular challenge, was also just incredible. When it was like sort of a sexist situation, to be honest, he was also really supportive again in telling me how to navigate that situation in a very direct way. I won't go into the details, but I think the point is, in those moments, having a male supporter, I think, goes a long way.
I want to challenge that just a little bit though for a second, not the second part, but the part where you're in that hospital with your baby was RSV. But I can't imagine, like, was there another option for him to not be supportive?
Sure.
That's okay. That to me is like, that's a huge statement. That's heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. There was.
I'm a little speechless. Like, to me as a woman boss, and granted, like my company, apples to oranges,
right?
What we're doing in the size of companies, but like, no questions asked, right? Like, yeah, let me know. That's wild. I literally, like, I don't know, like, that you felt even nervous that that you could have lost your job, or he would have said, get on the plane anyways.
Never that I would have lost my job, and look, to be perfectly transparent, I know I put more on myself in some of those situations too, because I'll be the only female in the room, or because I'll be the only female for that particular meeting. And so you are nervous about one example being a burden on future decisions that are made for you, or future opportunities that are potentially or not potentially given to you. And I never felt that as a result of that situation.
This is making me think a lot, because I'm in a female dominated profession. I mean, if there's a male, you're just like, testosterone. I just think I had an eye doctor appointment this morning, summer before our conversation, and I said, listen, I have to be home by this time because I'm doing a podcast. And he's like, oh, what is it about? And I said, it's about women and their careers and navigating everything. And he goes, that's really great, because we've only been doing this for 50 to 60 years, where men and women are in the career world together. And then I started going into like, yeah, and it's really challenging because women will always have both sets of responsibilities if they're in a career. They're expected to show up like a man, which I get it, like, it's our job. Right. But we're also supposed to be home and managing everything with a kid like a mom. And we do. We do both. So it just, your story really rings true to that for me, because you had a baby who was sick and in a hospital, and you also had the pressure of being the only female at that table. And no matter, I love that he was supportive, and that's great, and he sounds like an amazing man, but so many men in that position, they will never, ever, because they can't understand what it feels like to straddle that fence. Yeah. And I mean, it just goes to show the challenges that women face. And I don't even want to sound like a feminist right now, because that's not what this is about, because I'm not. Like, that's not what this is about at all. It's just like the hard truth that women wear more hats and have to be, a lot to a lot of people, and just have to keep it all in our damn brain. No wonder my memory's shit, because there's just so much like going on all the time. And then there's guilt, right? Like, sure, you're not in the meeting, or you're not with your baby. Like, you can't do it all for everyone. So you feel like you're not doing enough somewhere. And then you're supposed to be a happy, put together, complete person too. It's just a lot.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this. Can we have it all? Right. I know that that's a sensitive subject, right? It's an unpopular opinion for me to say we cannot have it all. I
We
don't think
cannot
that we
have it
cannot
all.
have it all.
No,
Yeah.
how can we have it all?
I think that for me, going back on type A, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera, I have initially felt like, well, of course I can have it all. But I've realized that if I try to have it all, I'm probably not doing it all very well.
Yep.
And so for me, I find myself when my career is very demanding, which it's not always as demanding every day as the day before, the next day. So I have some flexibility there. But in times where my career is very demanding, I'm traveling a lot. I know I'm not going to be able to volunteer at the school or pick the kids up from school or drop them off every day. It's not realistic. And so I feel very blessed to have a support system, both in my husband, who's amazing, and having a nanny who's amazing. That really is that extension of me, and not even an extension of me. I think we work incredibly well together to feel like we're supporting each other and sort of finding that right balance, because I don't believe you can have it all the time. It's not realistic.
I don't think you can have it all at once.
Yeah.
I think, for me, as I started a business and I grew it, originally I thought I'm going to own my own business because I want to pick up my kids by the time they're in 3rd grade from school.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And, I get really, really sad growing the business, and then going through the pandemic really took a toll on my mental health and my ability to find calm. And I was overwhelmed and I was stressed. And I look back at my kids' lives, and maybe from I don't know, when Sydney was 2 and Adam was 4, until they were 5 and 7, or 6 and maybe 6 and 8. I'm just like, shit, I know I wasn't 100% present, and I can't get that time. I can't.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to get emotional. I don't know what the other solution is, because this was my path. I wasn't happy what I was doing before, but I don't know. You can't build the business and be a fully present mom and be a good wife. That was definitely not the strong point in our marriage.
Right.
I definitely was not my best self. I wasn't the best friend I could be. It's just, you can't do it all.
You can't. In those moments, I really try to focus on creating core memories for the kids, because I will be there for homework and I will be at the soccer games, that, and all of that sort of stuff. But, taking them out of school these past few days to take them skiing and have a core memory created for them, my hope is that they remember I was there, and that they had someone cheering them on at a soccer game or after school activity or what have you. But we're also taking the time to create those core memories, so that if I'm traveling a lot for the month, I have that to look forward to. They have that to look forward to. And I think that's sort of at least my small attempt to try to find that balance. I was traveling a lot this month. It's only February. I was traveling a lot in February. And I said, we're going skiing together this first week of March. And so it was my way of saying, I know I'm busy right now, but we're going to have this dedicated time together.
Yeah. And, I do that too. If there's a lot going on, I'll be like, I'll set something up for everybody to look forward to. So we know we're coming back together. And then you also hope, I don't know, I feel like me as someone else's child, and then I'm my own child, we're messing them up and they're going to be mad about it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's something that we should put away a therapy fund for.
I know. I don't know what mine is yet that I'm doing to them, but I know it's for sure there.
Especially my daughter. I'm sure she'll find something. But you hope that they're also learning good things from your work ethic as well. Right.
Yes, agree. Especially, to circle back to this part about being a female leader. I think especially as a female leader, I have a daughter, but I have a son, and I want my son to see that mommy can work hard and contribute to the family, and that's really cool too.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny what he picks up from my conversations that he starts to repeat, but it's a proud moment for me that I'm influencing him in a way that I think historically would probably only be done by the male figure in the household.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really special too. So while, I mean, like we were saying, like you can't have it all. You have to find the beauty in what you are doing.
Yeah.
And then you hope they get the good, and then you do as much as you can with them. And I feel like I'm much more present now because, the business is more established. And my mom always said to me in a really, held true. She's like, you think they need you right now when they're 2, but they really need you when they're like 12.
Yeah.
You want the conversation.
Good feeling.
You want to be present when they're older, because that's when like they might not act like they need you, but like you really need to. So
yeah,
it's a lot. But
the other thing I want to make sure I touch on, because it was something I struggled with early on, was how to be me and have long blonde hair and, like makeup and shopping and what have you in an environment that is more male dominated, and even just in the business environment in general. I think when I first got into an office setting, I thought I had to wear a button-up collared shirt, and I could only wear, a pearl earring or a diamond, very simple earring or what have you. And that was more in my head than was necessary. But the company I was working at also evolved, and I also evolved so that I felt like I could live my truth and express myself. And really, I was fortunate that the words that came out of my mouth are more meaningful than what I looked like. And also, I think there's a time and a place, right, for what you're going to wear and show up in. And I think being mindful of that is also important. But just being perfectly honest, I do think about when I'm going to wear my hair up or when I'm going to wear my hair down based on the circumstances or environment that I'm in and how it might be perceived that I have long blonde hair. I mean, it is a thing. You note it, and it is.
So when do you put it up?
So it's funny because I try to force myself to keep it down to make a point, right? But in a setting with that is going to be a more financial driven, male dominated setting, I might put my hair up, which is silly to admit and say, but I think it's important for women to know that like it is something that we consider as we're preparing for our day or preparing for a meeting, that you might show up a little bit differently based on the circumstances.
I don't think it's silly. I think it's reality. And I think that it's hopefully something I think that will continue to evolve.
And I'll tell you, if I have it up the first time, I'll probably take it down the second time. Yeah. But I don't want it to be someone's first thought, right? I don't want that to be someone's first view is what I look like versus the words that are coming out of my mouth. And I can only influence that so much in terms of how I show up and what I wear and how I wear my hair or what have you.
You feel like in the world that you're working in, the women are supportive of each other or they're competitive with each other?
I've experienced both. I think where I am now, the women are incredibly supportive of one another. And it is a major difference maker. I've through the course of my career, I felt like I've worked with very supportive women, and I've gone really out of my way to make sure that younger women that I mentor feel very supported as well. But I think it's ebbed and flowed. I think when women are supportive of one another, we can really move mountains. And so I think feel very fortunate that where I am right now, we are incredibly supportive of one another. Yeah.
That's really great. I just have one more question about the whole gender role part. Do you feel pushback when you are overseeing males?
No.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, that's what we want our sons to be like. Yeah, women are in those roles. So maybe that's.
Yeah. I have never really felt that way. And I think it's because perhaps I show up in a way that recognizes, regardless of, whatever gender might be on the team, I don't know everything. That's impossible.
Mhm.
I think it's not the best to try to show up as the smartest person in the room. And so I know where my contributions are great, and I know where I could use support. And I think that helps sort of push aside any gender challenges.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we only have a little bit of time left, and there's
Okay.
so much. So one of the things, before every episode, I ask my guests what's their why. And before you tell your why, I'll just say when I read Summer's why, I was like, hell yes, someone just coming out and saying it, because I really think this is the why for a lot of people. But go ahead, Summer. What's your why for doing what you do?
So to Jesse's point, when she asked me this question, I really was thinking, am I going to tell her the truth? Do I need to come up with some sort of, fancy answer? But really the answer is financial security. That is my why. It certainly is bigger than that in terms of why my why is financial security. But, going back to the beginning and how I grew up, I came from a financially insecure home. And while my mom in particular went out of her way to sort of hide that from us, it was not invisible. We were told not to answer the phone because a bill collector was calling, or, maybe she wasn't home if somebody was calling. And there were just various conversations throughout my childhood that I love my mom, and she did everything that she could to make sure we were comfortable and had the things that we wanted and needed. But I was part of conversations as a young person that I just knew were not probably the best for a young person to have the knowledge of, right?
Yeah.
A young person probably doesn't need to know how much money is in their parents' bank account, right? My son is very interested in asking that question himself, but it's just
he's going into finance.
Yeah, exactly. But it's none of their business. And so for me, I don't want my kids to be spoiled by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't want them to be financially insecure. And so for me, it was about a career path that met the financial security element I was looking for, as well as aligned with my values. It's important for me for my kids to be humble and kind and solid contributors to the world. And for me, not having them worry about the financial aspect is really important, so we can focus on the other things.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more. To me, I'm in professions that I work with people and that have needs that need to be met. And I love that. But I need always to find an aspect of how it's going to support my family as well. Because to me, finances, especially once my parents got divorced, it was like, I'm giving this parent so much money. This parent has all my money. We don't have money for this. It's always the story. For me, it's freedom. I don't want to say no to opportunities. My kids can have clothes from Target. My kids don't need fancy things.
Right.
But if there's an amazing camp or experience that can enrich their lives, I want to have the ability to do that. If somebody breaks a bone, I don't want to have to be worried about that expense. I want to, that's what it, for me, financial freedom just means I can breathe and make decisions for my life and their life and our life that I feel is best without that. And I'm still on that track, right? As business owners till this day, the business gets paid before we do. Yeah. So we're still trying to figure that out. But I love that you said that that's your reason, because that's the reason.
Yeah. Well, and I've done a lot of soul searching to figure out what makes me anxious. And one of the things that makes me anxious is going back to that moment as a kid when I felt like I didn't have that security. And so in job transitions or in moving to California and trying to figure out the right financial balance for us, I know I'm not my best self when I'm feeling like that's out of whack. And so it makes me a better wife, friend, sister, mother, all of those things too, to just, to your point, have that freedom and be able to breathe in a space that I know my family's taking care of, and doesn't make me retreat to this place that, you know, to your point, we all have these things that come up as kids that we have to work through, whether we realize they're happening in real time or not.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I, like you said, in order to be the best version of us for ourselves and everybody, it's having that inner calm and that inner peace. And having financial insecurity does not equal inner calm and inner peace. 1,000%. Another thing that you mentioned is, well, okay, wait, hold on. You wrote one thing that you found true in business is everybody's faking it. And I'm also really into that because I'm going to admit this on here. I tell my employees all the time, fake it till you make it and come out and ask me after. Because every time I learn a new skill or I want to try something new, I have to fake it until I know what the hell I'm doing. And who knows how long that's going to take. And then on the back end, you're like, okay, now I need to like figure out what I actually was doing or what I should have been doing.
Yeah.
So you find that too in your role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for me, one of the things I know about women, and there's been, I'm not making this up, there's been research about it, but we will see, we'll talk about LinkedIn for a second. We will see a job on LinkedIn, same job that a male sees. And studies have proven that the male will go for it. They might meet, 7 out of 10 of the qualifications of that particular job, but they're like, I'll figure it out. Well, let's go for it. Yeah. Whereas a woman, historically, at least, and I hope this is getting better, I'm trying to influence it being better, at least in the impact that I have, but they'll make sure they have the 10 out of 10 qualifications checked before they apply for the job. And so I think,
do you think that has to go back to also imposter syndrome? I mean, that's
absolutely
something that women really feel that men, they don't experience it to that.
Absolutely. And I think it is tied into the fake it till you make it. I do think everybody is faking it to some extent. I have experienced the same thing you just did, that when you don't know something, it's not that you're coming from a place of knowing nothing about it, right? It's a skill that's related to your job.
If you know you don't know it, it's because you know enough to know you don't know. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Okay. I have found that if you force yourself to talk about it, explain whatever the skill may be to somebody else, you're more easily able to uncover what you don't know about it. And so, you can fake it to a certain extent, but you sort of realize when you're stepping over the line of what you maybe really do or don't know. So practice it in a comfortable setting where I'm explaining it to someone that might and hopefully knows more about it than me, that can help me think through how to become better at that skill or that whatever topic may be. But there are some things, I was talking to Scott about this yesterday. It's not like we're suggesting, fake it till you make it with quantum physics or something. That's not what we're suggesting.
You're not doing someone else with fake it till you make it. But there are going to be moments where you're caught off guard or you're not sure, you need to figure it out. But this is something else I tell my staff when they feel like they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, the fact that you need to know more about that means you actually know more than you thought you know.
I love that. Yes, it does. Because you have the awareness of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just figure it out on the back end. But nobody knows it all.
Right.
We're all just presenting our best foot forward and then figuring it out on our own.
Completely agree. And I think being given the opportunity by you as a boss, by folks in my organization that trust me to try out a new topic or explain something new that I haven't before, it gives you the confidence that they trust that you will be able to figure it out, right? And I think then it feels like a safe space to learn in that moment and build your capabilities so that you can know more about it and feel more comfortable.
And just like one more thing on that topic that it makes me think of is when I'm looking to add to my team, I care more about the energy I'm getting from you and how you're presenting to me as a human than
Yeah.
your knowledge, because you can always learn more, and
Right.
you will,
Right. Right.
but you are who you are, right? And if you're going to bring bad energy or negativity or whatever to a corporation or to a team, that can't be fixed or undone. But
Yeah.
you can always decide to learn more about something that you don't already know about.
Yeah, I agree. It goes back to the values-based leadership and working for a company that aligns with your values, hiring people that align with your values, marrying someone that aligns with your values, right? I think we underestimate, I think, especially in our younger years, how important that is. And I'm not sure we're fully able to even evaluate what that means for us.
It's not really talked about.
Right.
I
Right.
think it takes living life and life experience to look back and say, oh, this really matters.
Yeah.
But I feel like that just comes with experience. I don't feel like it's something that's addressed.
Yeah. Agree.
It should, I mean, it should be, because I think it's really important.
Agree.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I have loved speaking with you. There's even topics here like manifestation, which I feel so passionately about that we didn't even get to, but thank you. I know you're on vacation with your family, so I'm
Of course, the kids are happily skiing right now. I made my best effort yesterday, and I went up the stairs last night and thought, well, maybe I'm not going to do that again tomorrow. So
I've always said, I skied growing up, but I've always said, if you catch me on a ski trip with my family, you're not going to find me on the mountain.
yeah,
It just sounds like so much work, but I will happily wait for you in the lobby
exactly.
with hot chocolate.
Exactly. So I'm talking to you right now. They're skiing. It's
Is
great.
Scott skiing too?
He was going to, but I think while he might not have admitted it, he might be feeling the same way as me today. So he was walking around town. So he's
Oh, nice.
also
We'll go
entertaining.
join him. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for talking.
You're welcome.
It's really interesting to learn more about the corporate world.
Cool. My pleasure. Thank you.
Have fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye.